What's going on, guys? Welcome back. I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into today's video. So the vehicle you see here is literally less than a week old at the time of the recording. These folks had literally just purchased it from the dealership and they basically brought it straight to me. And you're probably asking, okay, so why are you detailing a brand new vehicle? So what I'm gonna do today is give you guys a little bit of insight. I worked at a dealership for almost 10 years, so I have a little bit of experience as far as new cars go and what kind of things actually happen, not only in the transportation of the vehicle itself from the factory to the dealership, but also what happens to vehicles after they get to the dealership. So I'm going to start off with, the long story short, when a vehicle gets made at the factory, it goes out a big door at the factory, someone drives it to a big, giant, basically holding lot, an outdoor holding lot, somewhere outside the facility. And then it could sit in that lot for weeks until someone comes and gets it and puts it on either a train or a transport truck. That's usually the two methods of transportation for these vehicles. You see me doing just a simple bug removal here. There's pretty much no bugs on the vehicle, but I wanted to just be 100% sure that there was nothing left, so I'm going to go ahead and do a bug removal treatment. So that's what you see me doing here. So basically, it either gets put on a transport truck or gets put on a train. Most likely it gets put on a train to go somewhere else, and then it gets put on a transport truck and goes to the dealership. So let's take, for instance, the new Tahoe that my wife and I purchased this year. It was made in Arlington, Texas. It sat in a holding lot for several days and then finally got put on a train. Went on a train from Arlington, Texas to Chicago, Illinois, and then got put on another train and went from Chicago to, I think, Fort Wayne or Elkhart, Indiana. And then it got put in another holding lot, and then it got on a transport truck and drove halfway across the state of Indiana, all over the place, and finally got to our dealership. So with that said, the car sees a lot of, it could see a lot of weather in that time. It can also see a lot of different elements that people don't really think about. So when a car gets put on a train and it goes hundreds of miles on a train, these train cars that transport these vehicles they are enclosed, but they are also open air at the same time. They're an enclosed train car, but they have these big vents in them all up and down each side of the train car, and that allows the air to pass through. The unfortunate thing about cars being transported by train is that you get a lot of rail dust that kind of gets wafted up into the air, and then it lands on the paint of these vehicles. And depending on how far these vehicles have to go on these trains, you end up with a lot of what looks like just dust sitting on the paint, but it's actually rail dust, which is almost like brake dust, only even gnarlier. And it's kind of hard to get off of the paint, and sometimes by the time the dealership gets it, it's even etched into the clear coat in some places. So I had to deal with a lot of rail dust when I worked at the dealership. Another thing I had to deal with was from the time it leaves the factory to the time it finally gets to the dealership, I would say about 10 people have probably been in and out of that vehicle, pulling it out of the factory and then pulling it onto a train car and then backing it off of that train car and pulling it onto another train car and then pulling it out of that train car and putting it onto a transport truck. And then the transport truck driver has to back it on and off so many times depending on where it's at on the trailer and what all he has to unload first. So by the time it actually gets to the dealership, it has already seen a handful of different vehicles and the car's only got 3 or 4 miles on it. But a lot of people have already been in and out of that car. So every time someone is in and out of that vehicle, backing it onto something else or whatever, there's just more chances for small things to happen, little scratches, little dents, dings, whatever. So by the time it reaches the dealership, from my experience, I'd say it got to a point to where 8 out of every 10 vehicles that when they came into the dealership had some sort of damage on them, whether it was a scratch, a dent, a ding, a scuff, somewhere on the vehicle. It just happens in transport. It just happens. I mean, these transport drivers and all of these people are very careful with these vehicles, but you can only be so careful and things just happen. So a lot of times what happens is at the dealership, you end up with people who aren't necessarily trained to do the job that they're doing, as far as the people that take care of the vehicle once it gets to the dealership and goes on the lot, right? So when it gets to the dealership, it gets checked in by somebody, and that person is supposed to inspect the vehicle inside and out and make sure there's no damage. But when it comes in with gobs of dirt and dust all over it, it is hard to see a scuff or a scratch or anything. So that really doesn't get noticed until later when the vehicle gets washed, either to go on the lot or to get washed to be sold to somebody when someone comes and buys it and it gets a cleanup before those people take it home. That's called a delivery wash. But long story short, the damage usually gets missed in the inspection process when the vehicle first gets dropped off at the dealership. If it does get caught at all, it usually gets caught by the guy that washes it before someone takes it home. And that was me for a lot of years. I was the guy that was doing the delivery washes. I was doing all kinds of different things. I was doing full details for used cars. I was doing all kinds of things for new new cars and I was doing a lot of delivery washes. I guess I just had the eagle eye and I was always catching things like this. But a lot of times at dealerships, it is somebody who's pretty inexperienced and is just the wash guy, and they just get paid to wash cars and go home. So they don't really care if it has any damage on it. I was the one guy that did. But I say all that to say I have that eagle eye experience. I know where most vehicles get their damage. I know when it usually happens. I know to look for it. I know where to look for it. I know when to look for it. And so this particular vehicle, you'll see right now I'm just doing a basic wash on it, and then I will do an iron removal treatment. And then after that, I will clay bar it. And then after that, you'll see that I point out a few things. I think I do. Anyway, I did find a few things. There were some scratches on the hood. There was a place on the front of the hood that was actually a factory defect. There was some adhesive on one of the Jeep logos where in the transportation process, they will put plastic all over these vehicles. And the plastic has obviously adhesive on it, right? And you have to peel it all off when it gets to the dealership. But anyway, there was some adhesive from some of that kind of stuff left on the Jeep logo that the dealership didn't even take off. So I found a handful of scratches and I found some adhesive and I found a factory paint defect. So that's pretty much why this particular customer wanted me to get this in. Number one, I've had enough conversations with this customer. They now know why it's so important to get in as soon as they get the vehicle so they can get it completely decontaminated before I protect it. So now I'm just going to finish up this hand wash process and then we'll pick back up in just a few minutes. And one thing you're going to notice in this video is that I'm going to edit some of the processes a little bit short just to save some time in the video itself. So right now you see that I've applied the iron removal and I am now basically just agitating that with a wash mitt and some soap. And once I get that all agitated, I will rinse that off. This iron removal treatment will basically do exactly what it says. It will remove all of the iron particles that have settled on the paint of this thing. So you're talking rail dust, brake dust, whatever, it's all coming off in this particular process. And then I'll clay bar it just to make sure everything else is off. You see me rinsing it now. So yeah, even though vehicles are, brand new vehicles, by the time they get to the dealership, like I said, they've seen a handful of people in and out of the vehicle already, and it is bound to have some sort of damage somewhere. And there's bound to be a lot of brake dust or rail dust all over it, which needs to come off before it gets protected. That's the most important thing, is to make sure all of the contaminants are off before it gets protected. You see I'm just rinsing here, rinsing all of that iron removal off, getting it all off of there. And then you will see me grab my clay lubricant and my clay mitt here in just a minute. There it is. And I will just go around and basically clay the whole vehicle. Now, some detailers will do the iron removal process after they clay bar it. Some detailers like me will do the iron removal before. It doesn't really matter. Some people say it does, but it really doesn't. But some people use a clay bar, some people use a clay mitt, some people use a clay pad. It really doesn't matter what you use. In this particular instance, I used the clay mitt because I knew there really wasn't a whole lot after I did the iron removal process to take off, so I knew the clay mitt would do the job here. As you see, I'll just do a section and then I'll rinse and then I'll just move on. I know this video is particularly long for Instagram. It's more suited for my YouTube channel, but I'm putting it on Instagram just to give some of you guys a little bit more of an insight on new vehicles. So you'll see me go around and go ahead and finish all of this clay bar process, and then for some reason my SD card did not save the drying process. I don't know why. You can thank my SD card for that. I really kind of wanted to show you guys that, but somehow it got lost in the process. But basically what I do to dry it is after I've washed it and clay barred it and everything and it's still wet, before I dry it, I will spray it down with a rinse aid, which basically just makes all the water beat up so it can be blown off instead of dried off with towels or a water blade. So I will spray that on and then I will rinse it off, and then all the water beads up like crazy, and then I can literally just blow it off with an electric leaf blower. And that's how I dry any vehicle off these days. I just want to basically touch the paint as little as possible. That way there is that much less chance for marring or scratching or abrasives of any kind touching the paint. So anyway, I'll blow it off with the electric leaf blower, and then I will just take a microfiber towel and dry the door jambs and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, for some reason it didn't show that. So for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and switch to the next clip. So now you see me jumping straight to getting the adhesive off of this Jeep logo. Sorry for the weird angle on the camera. I didn't have it tilted up enough on my head, but you'll see me using an adhesive remover, and I'm just rubbing with a very soft microfiber rag to get all of that adhesive off of the Jeep logo. And it actually took a little while to get it all off of there. Apparently it had been on there for a while because it was taking a while. And once you see me finish up with that, you'll see that I move on to getting my light buffing compound that I use that I can hand buff some light scratches out. So you see me adding that to a few scratches on the hood that I know that I can just hand buff out. So that's what you see me doing here. I found 3 scratches on the hood, so I'm just kind of going over that and making sure it's completely gone. I've used this particular compound for years and I absolutely love it. It's actually from Carbright and it's called Black Pearl, and there's different levels of that particular compound you can get, but this one seems to be one that I can can use to kind of hand buff things out and not have to get the machine out, and it doesn't cause any damage to the paint. You see me moving to the rear here and just applying it to some places that I noticed back there, even one on the tail light. You see my arm moving at the speed of light here, and just like that, all of the defects are gone except for the factory defect, which I forgot to show you, but it was like a little pin mark on the front of the hood by the Jeep emblem. Now you just see me dressing the tires. I always dress the tires before I do any sealant on the paint, mainly because if I get any overspray on the paint for any reason, I can remove that overspray before I add any sealant instead of trying to remove it off of the fresh sealant. So I'm just going to go ahead and dress the tires and some of the insides of the fender well here. This one has the cloth fender wells in it, so the only thing I'm dressing on the fender wells is just the bottom side, the little plastic fender flare there. I'm not doing the outside of the fender flares because I'm going to seal those up with my graphene detailer here in just a few minutes. And now you see me switching to that product. So this product is actually a detail spray. Some companies are calling it a 6-month coating. Some companies are still just calling it a longer term protection detail spray. So this is a detail spray from Exoforma, and it is a graphene infused detail spray. So this is going to give this customer 6 months of protection versus a traditional wax that would maybe get them a month of protection to a month and a half. So needless to say, the detailing product world has come a long ways just in the last 5 or 10 years. And, you know, wax on, wax off type waxes are pretty much out the door these days. And these ceramic infused and graphene infused detail sprays are really taking the center stage for your basic protection these days. And obviously you can from there bump up into actual ceramic and graphene coatings, which give you years upon years of protection. But this is a good all around, 6-month protection. There are some companies now coming out with graphene or ceramic infused detail sprays that last up to a year, 12 months. So they're really coming a long ways with making faster and easier application that goes a lot longer than just a month or two. So it's literally just, spray on and wipe off like a detail spray, but it will give lots of gloss, lots of slickness, and lots of protection for 6 months at least. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys enjoy the rest of this video. After this, I'm pretty much done. You'll just see some rolling shots of the vehicle, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight on new cars and this new way that I'm protecting vehicles now that's a lot better than traditional waxes. So thanks for watching. Until next time, peace out.